Over the years, as a pastor and as a hospital chaplain, people have often shared their anxieties and their fears with me. And often they will conclude with, but everybody has troubles. And so it's us experienced troubling times, difficulties, and challenges in our lives. These challenges take many forms: physical, emotional, or intellectual challenges, difficult family problems, frustrations on the job, financial insecurity, unemployment, natural disaster, being bullied, having a secret fear, or perhaps having low self-esteem, and so the list could go on. Some challenges can be very big indeed. Every person, young or old, experiences challenges in their life. The kind of person we become depends to a large extent on how we handle our troubles. We can develop patience, courage, and understanding, or we can remain stuck in our anger and become bitter and cynical. Think of some of the great figures in life history who struggled against ill health and physical limitation. Louis Pasteur, one of the great figures in medical research, he had a paralytic stroke at age 46, which disabled him for the rest of his life, yet he carried on with his work. Beethoven, musical genius, continued to write his music even after he became deaf. Helen Keller, born blind and deaf, struggled to live a creative life despite the severe limitations that she had to live with. Stephen Hawking, a gifted theoretical physicist and cosmetologist, continued his important work in research and writing, despite living with Lou Gehrig's disease for over 50 years. And Temple Grandin, she made significant academic strides in animal behavior and in autism, despite she herself living with the limitations of being on the autism spectrum. And there are many other examples, but we'll stop there. So now, how did these people manage? What inner strength enabled them to handle the challenges that life brought them? And isn't that something that we all need to learn? Well, when we turn to the Bible, we find men and women often at their wits' end, struggling with different kinds of perplexities. Life in the Bible is never simple, straightforward, or uncomplicated. St. Paul, for example, had his thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan sent to buffet me. 3 times I begged the Lord to rid me of it, Paul writes, but the answer Paul received was, "My grace is all that you need. Power comes to its full strength in weakness." Well, no one knows what this thorn in Paul's flesh was. There are hints that it might have been eye trouble or epilepsy. Yet despite Paul's affliction, he continued to write many missionary letters without ever telling anyone the details of his troubles. We don't know the nature of Paul's problem, but whatever it was like a pointed stick driven into his side. Paul desperately wanted to be rid of it. He prayed for deliverance, but Paul wasn't freed of it. Paul had to come to terms with it. How did he handle it? How did he rise above this challenge and maintain his joy and enthusiasm for his missionary work? What strength enabled Paul to face life despite his thorn in the flesh? We need to know Paul's secret. Well, I believe that so much depends on the attitude that we take to the difficult challenges that present themselves to us in our lives. The natural reaction is to ask, why did this happen to me? Why now? Why me? This isn't fair. Life isn't fair. We live in a time and place that tells us that we should be happy all of the time. For the most part, we don't live in a mindset that sees value in pain and struggle and self-denial. There's a story, perhaps more of a fable. It's of two frogs that fell into a pail of cream. And the one frog immediately concluded that all struggle was futile, and he gave up and he drowned. The other frog kept kicking and kicking and kicking, looking for some possibility, for some solution. Eventually, through his kicking, he made a pat of butter, which he jumped on, and from that pat of butter, was able to jump out of the pail. Now, this far-fetched story stresses the point that attitude makes a big difference. A person with a positive attitude looks for learning and for growth opportunities. He or she does not just simply bemoan their fate. Frustrating and difficult circumstances often call forth inventiveness and creativity from within. If you're willing to try something new and different, then there is an opportunity to be surprised by the results. In my early ministry, many years ago, I was hired to be an intentional interim minister for a 2-point pastoral charge in Alberta. The pastoral charge was in a mess. 2 ministers had left because of the mess, and it just so happened that I was at a point in my life where I was considering leaving the church. For as a young minister, I had become disillusioned by many things in the United Church. Nevertheless, I decided to give the United Church another chance, and so I agreed to go to this messed up pastoral charge and be their intentional interim minister. One might say that a messed up minister went to a messed up pastoral charge. Uncertain of my calling, I dug deep within myself to tap into my creativity, and I tried some inventive interventions to get people talking. As the problems in these two churches has resulted in people not talking with one another. So there definitely was ongoing dysfunction in these two churches, but you know they had a strength. They had a number of strengths. One of the strengths of the churches was that the people in these two churches were feeling very badly about themselves as the church. And as a result, they went along with my far-off ideas and they chose to try something new. Well, the most amazing thing happened. As we journeyed together in foolishness, leaving the past and the future to take care of itself, focusing only on the present, and with the guidance of the Spirit, the walls that were dividing the groups in the church began to come down, and people started talking with one another. Well, since my time with these folks, the two churches, it was a happy ending. They've become healthy, they've grown and become stable. And for me, my call to ministry was reaffirmed. The key for this pastoral charge was that they took a terrible situation, and rather than giving up, they tried something new. For me as a minister, it too meant trying something new and not giving up. Members of this pastoral charge and me as their minister took a leap of faith into the unknown. We all chose to move forward and with positive attitudes seized opportunities to learn and to grow. However, I also believe that if we're going to have a positive attitude towards life challenges, we have to first face ourselves honestly and accept ourselves for who we are. The Serenity Prayer by Reinhold Niebuhr, adopted by Alcoholics Anonymous, points to what I mean. It says, God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We can make ourselves unhappy and miserable by wishing we were someone other than we are. We aren't all alike. We have different talents and abilities. We have different experiences. But in the end, we have to accept ourselves for who we are and go on from there. St. Paul had his thorn in the flesh, but he lived with it and carried forward his work as a Christian teacher and preacher. Sometimes I believe that we overvalue strength and brilliance. But often it's not at our point of strength, but at our point of weakness that we can be most helpful to other people. It's a well-known fact that the people most helpful to those with alcohol problems are those who struggled with the problem themselves. In my work with bereaved families of Ontario back in the 80s and early 90s, it became clear that the parents who have worked through the loss and the death of their own children were the ones who were the most helpful to newly bereaved parents. You see, our wounds can be a source of healing to others. And this brings me to my final point. No matter what may be challenging us in this life, we can still make a spiritual contribution to the world. In ways beyond our knowing, God may use our limitations to bring strength, courage, and blessing to others. Jean Vanier, who was recently in the news because of his death. He was a Canadian philosopher and theologian and founder of l'Arche, an international organization that works for the creation and growth of homes, programs, and support networks for people living with intellectual disabilities. Vanier had a reputation for being an impressive speaker because of his warmth and his sensitivity. He touched and stirred audiences with his insight and compassion. And when he was asked about his deep understanding of human feelings, he replied, "These things I have learned by living and working with people who live with mental challenges." You see, individuals who are often not always valued by society in general had something very valuable to share with Jean Vanier. They became Jean Vanier's teachers. And so the message for us in this is that we should not despise the imperfections in others or the imperfections in ourselves. It is our imperfections, more than anything else, that can challenge us to grow in character and spiritual development. What we're talking about this morning is a courageous, positive approach to life. It's not copping out, running away, or giving up. It's hanging on and sticking with the struggle. It's Christ's way. Jesus faced the cross and its suffering, and he didn't want to die at age 33. He earnestly prayed to be delivered from the cross, but it wasn't to be. Rather, Jesus was strengthened to bear the cross. And so for us, the cross has become the symbol of hope and courage and victory. Pain, suffering, unfortunate circumstances need not mean defeat. Through it, we may indeed find blessing. We remember Christ's words to St. Paul, "My grace is all you need. Power comes to its full strength through weaknesses." But handling challenges should not necessarily be managed on one's own. There could and possibly should be others to help us along the journey. In the passage from Matthew's Gospel that was read this morning, we heard of Jesus' commission to us to clothe the naked, feed the hungry, visit the sick, visit those in prison, and welcome the stranger. Well, there are many ways to respond to Jesus' mandate to us. And perhaps you already do this in your day-to-day lives. Or at least you have ideas how you might help others with their challenges. There are a couple of examples I'd like to share with you this morning. So yesterday on CNN, I learned of a man, Roman Espinoza, from Waterton, New York. And maybe you've already heard this news clip. This man has a blessing box on his front lawn, similar to the little free libraries that some folk have on their front lawns. And the concept is simple. The box is a miniature food pantry, receiving items from those who want to donate and offering food items to those who need them. Whether you're taking or giving, You can just go to the blessing box, Espinosa told CNN. There's not a lock on it. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Another example I have comes from Facebook, and recently on Facebook there have been a number of shout-outs to all of the kids at school who didn't win an award, who didn't make the honor roll, who didn't receive a scholarship, those who barely made it through the school year because they're not perhaps academically inclined. Well, Facebook encourages its readers to not forget those kids because they are perhaps doing their very best. And Facebook reminds us to congratulate these kids because they may not have the academics behind them, but they may have other wonderful attributes such as kindness, creativity, generosity, integrity, grit, love, thoughtfulness, being genuine, being the best version of who they are. Facebook suggests that a pat on the back, perhaps the simplest of recognitions, can go a long way in supporting a child or a young person who's struggling to manage with life's challenges. I'm sure you can think of many other examples. So in conclusion, we leave today, I believe, with two learnings from the scripture passages that were read. From Matthew's Gospel, we hear Christ's challenge to us to care for others, to help others as they manage the challenges in their lives. And then from the reading in Corinthians, it speaks to, as we handle our own challenges, we can be encouraged by Christ's words to St. Paul, "My grace is all you need. Power comes to its full strength in weakness." Amen.